I mean, what difference does it make? I make you feel good, you make me feel good. Now, what the hell more do you want from a guy?
You should stop trying to make me mad.
I don't have time for this. I gotta go to work.
And I want the rest of you cowboys to know something. There's a new sheriff in town. His name is Reggie Hammond. Y'all be cool. Right on. Welcome to the party, pal.
Action movie reviews with Mackey, Judd, and Rami.
Get to the chopper!
Yippee-ki-yay, mother...
And this is technically the 21st installment of Action Movie Rewind
Happy 21.
with Mackey and Judd.
It started with that Jean-Claude Van Damme piece of crap and it's gotten better since.
Wow. By the way, I have another Jean-Claude Van Damme piece of crap in my movies
what?
to pick at some point, so you know.
As long as it's about 1:32 in running time, I'm fine with it.
I think Bloodsport was probably like 1 hour and
it was really short.
10 minutes or something.
It was awful, but it was short, and that's all I care about for that one.
Not a lot of plot there. Have you gone back, Declan, and watched Bloodsport?
No, I need to.
You've got to watch Point Break first.
And then Point Break.
Point Break, you've got to watch. You can't do this exercise without the background of Point Break.
What are your plans on Sunday?
Probably watching at least half of WrestleMania
That's
19. And recovering from certainly numerous claws drank from Saturday and Friday.
Beautiful. I got into the Bud Light seltzers for the first time last night.
Okay.
I'm making my way through all the seltzers.
Are these people sponsoring our show yet? Because I feel like if you're going to talk about them, and
Open
I'm
for
going
business.
to bite, and I'm going. And by the way, each time that you guys talk about these things, I bite my lip because I have opinions.
Don't scare away sponsors.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. So I keep my mouth shut. But I feel like they need to come on board, or I need to unleash.
Okay. Well,
or also try a seltzer.
And then I'll apologize.
Maybe don't judge the seltzer drinkers. So, Action Movie Rewind. This week, Judd's choice of 48 Hours. 1982, the first ever feature film for Eddie Murphy. This was 2 years, I believe, into his 4-year run on Saturday Night Live. And so he was just blowing up right around this time period. And it got 93% on Rotten Tomatoes. It turned a $12 million budget into $79 million at the box office. And here's the summary. When a pair of reckless cop killers break out of prison, grizzled detective Jack Cates, Nick Nolte, is left no alternative but to spring fast-talking hustler Reggie Hammond, Eddie Murphy, from the penitentiary.
No alternative.
There was zero alternative.
No police work could have gotten...
I might argue that in retrospect,
Gans off the street.
They probably didn't need to bring the guy out of prison to solve this case.
Correct.
But who am I? So anyways, they bring Eddie Murphy out of the penitentiary in order to find the criminals. The catch, the pair only have 48 hours to complete their assignment, an arbitrary amount of time, by the way, before Hammond must return to prison. Naturally, the two despise each other and even engage in fisticuffs, but eventually, the danger facing them proves a strong enough common bond for them to play on the same team and even achieve a little mutual admiration by the end. Eddie Murphy, Nick Nolte, and also we have a return. I forget the actor's name, but the creepy sleazeball from Commando is...
Fat Freddie Mercury?
No, not Fat Freddie Mercury.
David Patrick Kelly, who played Sully in Commando, plays Luther in this film. His name is David Patrick Kelly, veteran stage actor and also a musician of some sort.
And plays the same character in Commando and in Die Hard, 48 Hours.
And he was in fact, so he did that in 82, and then I believe Commando was 85. Is that correct?
Somewhere in there.
So basically within a 3-year period, this guy played the same character and probably made a lot of money for doing it.
Yep. So let's start with Judd Zolgad. What was your favorite part about 48 Hours?
Okay, there's scenes I like, there's scenes I don't like, but you know what I'm going to focus on here? I feel like the key to this film is lines. It's just specific lines that I have recalled for years and years since the first time I saw it. And there's two in particular, but I'm going to go with, and yes, the scene is implausible, but I don't care. The film is implausible. The scene at the end where Gans has Reggie with a gun to his head, and he's going to ostensibly blow him away in front of Jack. And Jack comes out of the steam in Chinatown, I believe.
It is Chinatown, man.
And the guy's like, "I got everything. I got it." And Jack says,
"I got everything. I got the gun.
Yes.
I got the money."
And by the way, good bad guy Gans. But anyway, so Jack just says, and this is my favorite part, the line, "You're not gonna make it."
I think we have this, don't we?
Not
Take
all.
game, man, and blow his brains out.
Ain't gonna try it. Right, cop?
Are you crazy, man? I was just bluffing. nothing.
Okay.
Yes, I don't believe it. I got shot.
You're done. End of story.
Yes.
You.
Empties the clip. Empties the clip. Now, I want you to forget for 1 second that Gans is shot by Jack, it looks like around the arm. So he's shot, but he's not mortally wounded by any means. And Gans doesn't drop his gun. But he runs.
Which is amazing, by the way.
But he runs at Jack as if he's going to beat him up or something instead of shooting at him, which makes no sense. I don't care. The line, "You're not going to make it." And then he shoots him, and then he says, "You're done," which we just heard, and empties the clip. I absolutely love.
How about
You're not gonna make
Gans? By the way, I disagree. I don't think he was a great bad guy. I think
he's an underrated bad guy. I really liked him.
I think he took acting classes like the week before this movie came out.
Pretty bad.
Because when he gets shot. So the interaction starts with him. He's just like crazy and
Yes.
like oddly insecure in that moment. Like, I've got the gun, I've got the money, and I've got your partner, and like whatever. And he's like narrating what's happening, and then he gets shot, and then he goes, "I got shot. How did I get shot?"
I never get shot. Yeah. But anyway, I love the Jack line. You're not going to make it. You're not going to make it. Just the grizzled cop who doesn't care. And by the way, though, the thing about that scene is it's very important to show you that if Jack had shot Reggie, he really doesn't care that much. He just wants to get the bad guy. So and that's my favorite scene just because the lines in that film are great. And,
Some corny stuff.
and
Really
there's
corny.
another one I want to get to when the cop who does get shot at the start comes down the stairs, which I love that scene too.
let's get there
But
for
we
sure.
can get to that. Declan.
My favorite part is actually at the very opening, and we played it on the first clip, I'll replay it and then I'll break it down.
That's a fairly crummy way to start a morning.
Maybe I got a fairly crummy day.
Maybe that makes a nice excuse.
Maybe you don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Jack, when you start with that attitude, it's like I don't even know who you are.
What do you want to know? I mean, what difference does it make? I make you feel good, you make me feel good. Now, what the hell more do you want from a guy?
We should stop trying to make me mad.
I don't have time for this. I gotta go to work.
Okay.
Yes.
The scene starts.
Relationship Dr. Declan here.
The scene starts
Yes,
with
sir.
them obviously waking up from looked like a nice night from a night before.
Yep.
He's pouring some Jack Daniels into his coffee. That starts the rant. Do you realize he leaves the coffee at home?
Really?
He pours the Jack into the coffee. This exchange takes place. He says, "Screw it, I'm out of here," and he's walking out. And I noticed, like, wait a minute, he doesn't have the cup of coffee in his hand. So he poured this Jack Daniels into his coffee for this long, hard day of being a cop. And then he doesn't even bring the coffee. It was like, dude.
Okay.
bring
Because
the
he's so
coffee.
upset.
I think you've opened up a great entry path here to just talk about Nick Nolte's character in this movie, who is a wild alcoholic.
Yes.
Not only is he pouring whiskey into his coffee to start the day and forgets about it because it's just like habit. It's like forgetting to.
Well, he's got the flask all the time.
right. So he puts the flask
So
in the
he's
pocket.
got the flask.
He's regularly taking sips out of the flask before driving around San Francisco.
Yes.
This is probably like 10 years before DARE program came out and
It's
Mothers
right
Against
before
Drunk
Mad.
Driving.
It's right around the time that Mad started, actually.
Okay, so Mothers Against Drug Driving, and then we had Drug Abuse Resistance
But he's
Education.
a cop. Don't forget, he's a cop.
But in 1982, what I'm saying is the country didn't care that much about. They cared a little bit about drugs in the 70s and 80s, and then Reagan tried to put a bunch of people in prison. There's a great documentary about that on Netflix called The 13th, but I digress. And I think the fact that he's just drinking and driving throughout the entire movie is a little bit distracting for me, knowing that in this era, we're so strict on that. And in 1982, it was like, oh, whatever, we'll just trail you home if you're bombed
you
in your
do
car, right?
realize that film might be the most accurate portrayal of Nick Nolte's life possible, right?
Yeah.
Like that's really him. Like he's a complete crazy man.
He is. The rest of the things about his character, I just wrote a bunch of notes about his character here that I'm going to buzz through off Declan's point. So he is a deplorable human being in this movie, and may even just be a deplorable human being in his life. I know that he's kind of disheveled and a drinking problem
Yeah.
and drugs and
Yeah.
did a ton of cocaine in the 80s and stuff.
Absolutely.
And I've got a couple of anecdotes from the internet, which we'll get to later. But he treats everyone around him like garbage throughout the movie. He's very easily flustered and offended, which seems problematic for somebody that has a gun on them at all times. He gets into pointless arguments with his girlfriend too, like
All the time.
how do you even decipher what these arguments are about? They're just like it's just a codependent relationship that needs therapy.
Well, that's
Let's
the
be
right.
honest.
That's them trying to write her in a little bit and make it clear what her role is in the film without her having too much to do.
Sure. And they never even resolved it at the end. He was just he tells Eddie Murphy in the car, he's like, "Oh, I'll make it up to her tomorrow," and then rips his 50th heater of the movie.
It's a great flawed film.
Amazing. My favorite part of this movie is probably the theme of Eddie Murphy. So his prison term is 3 years, and he has 6 months left. So he's been in prison for 2.5 years, and he's horny. And that's one of the main themes throughout the entire movie. He's just like, yeah, he's kind of trying to solve the case, but he's got 48 hours to solve the case and get some.
And get some.
And there's a line in here. Is there? Do we have this?
Yep.
Okay.
I need trim.
Okay.
Yep.
Hey, listen, my name is Reggie.
I'm Candy.
Yo, look, Candy, if I don't get some trim before the night's over, I'm a bust.
What?
Some trim. Some mugambo. Sex.
Are you crazy? You can't ask me any better than that.
Look, you don't understand. It's 10:05. By 10:10, I want to be into some flesh, okay? Let's just go across the street over here. Wait a second. I don't have no money. Do you have any money on you?
You mean to tell me that you can't even pay for the room?
Hell! Hey, Jack, what's happening? I want you to meet my friend Candy. This is Jack.
Hello.
And goodbye.
Well, maybe I'll see you later.
Yeah, I hope so. You know, that's some rude to be pulling, man. It's the second time this week.
It's like he's just and finally, near the end, he finally has his night with the gal and then goes back to prison. So
Because he is the great thing about the character is to your point, he was at the height of his popularity of SNL at that time.
Yeah.
And so they basically wrote this character of Eddie Murphy being himself, dropping one-liners in this cop buddy film. And like they tried to write Nick Nolte around him. So like he got offended or he called him a variety of racist terms.
Oh, yeah.
But it was also like Murphy's stand-up role just sort of put into the film.
yeah, it was. Well, there's other things we'll get into here, but this is also like the first. All right, I'll just say it. Nick Nolte kind of ruined this movie for me. I didn't like Nick Nolte in this movie. And I generally don't like Nick Nolte, period.
Well,
but I understand that he's an icon of this era of movies.
They fixed it for you, my good man.
And that's what I was going to say.
They fixed it for you.
This movie starts a run of buddy cop movies throughout the 80s. And Eddie Murphy was the center of the early run of these.
Yes, he was.
So your buddy cop movies included at the end of the decade Lethal Weapon, Bad Boys in the 90s, even like Turner and Hooch. Like there's all these little spin-offs. But
God help us.
But
yeah.
48 Hours basically created Beverly Hills Cop.
Yes.
And then 3 different Beverly Hills Cop
Do you
movies.
like Judge?
And I like Judge Reinhold's character in Beverly Hills Cop more than I like Nick Nolte's character. Nick Nolte is just like there's not enough of a humorous side to him. He's just like this grouchy oaf that's drinking and smoking.
Well, I think this film was supposed to be relatively, in some ways, not totally. In some ways, I think it was supposed to be sort of gritty and grainy and dark and not. It was supposed to be funny, but not across the board. And it's like the people who did Beverly Hills Cop watched it and they're like, hold on a second. I got a PG film that's going to make way more because people can take their kids, right? Because Reinhold's character,
I think it's more like PG-13.
well,
Beverly
right,
Hills Cop.
but I'm saying 48 Hours was this gritty, grimy sort of adult film. Like
Yeah.
you wouldn't take your kid to it. They dumbed down the criminals in Beverly Hills Cop. They dumbed down the cops more to make them more friendly. And let's put banana in the tailpipe.
Banana in the tailpipe.
Yeah, but I mean, they sort of looked, I think, at 48 Hours and said, if we were to insert the Marx Brothers here, what would we have? And so it became this much more just sort of fun 80s, to your point, cop buddy film, as opposed to this gritty, grimy, alcoholic-driven film.
So I think you've nailed it because I think my beef with this movie
I get your beef.
is basically that like it should be Beverly Hills Cop. Like let Eddie Murphy star and then have kind of the grizzled white cop instead of just like grunting through the whole movie.
And dropping racist.
Right. Just have that be a different character that's a little bit more fun. And they did that with Beverly Hills Cop. So let's go through least favorite parts of the movie. Judd's will get.
Okay, the movie, again, to go back to my point from before, it had a ton of implausible things, right? So like there's a lot of things where you said this makes no sense. But the one to me that stands out and actually brings up my second favorite line from the film, but the whole scene is so beyond the scope of belief. It is when the bad guys shoot the two cops in the hotel. And Jack is downstairs, and he tells the receptionist or the person at the desk, call the police, call for help. And so
that was a weird. How many takes did they do on that one? It's like he points almost like the James Bond opening where he's like coming down the middle of the screen.
Yes.
He points at the receptionist and goes, "Call for help!
Call for help!" Yeah, it was super funny.
But here's my least favorite part, or among them. The cop that gets shot, who is clearly not close to being dead. I think he got hit, but I don't think he's like in terrible shape. While the bad guys are downstairs and Jack has a gun on them, the cop who didn't get killed moseys down the stairs and just stands there. And he's sort of sweating, but he's not like passed out. And that's where Gans tells Jack, "Give me your gun and I won't waste him." And then, of course, Jack gives him his gun and he wastes the cop. But what the hell is that cop doing coming down? You've been shot. Lay down upstairs and wait for help.
So I will say that's not even the biggest flaw in that scene. The biggest flaw in that scene.
I just think it's hilarious. But quickly, the best line, though, I love this line, is the line where the guy says, "Give me your gun." And the cop who's been shot says, "Don't you do that, Jack. Don't you do that for me. Don't you do that for me."
So the major flaw of that scene, and stuff like this just kind of like derails the movie temporarily for me. It's like, why, like, somebody clean that up, please. So the bad guy has a gun. I can't remember one of the bad guys has a gun. Nick Nolte does not, because he has given up his gun, as you mentioned.
Yeah,
right?
Gans has the gun, and Billy Bear is the one that runs out the door.
So Gans shoots the other cop, like you said, and still has like 3 or 4 bullets left in the gun.
Yeah.
So Nick Nolte then, without a gun, runs and jumps over the receptionist desk. And without a gun, jumps over the receptionist desk. The bad guy, Gans, has 4 bullets left. And instead of just walking over, pointing the gun over the top of the counter and killing Nick Nolte, he freaks out and fires 4 bullets into the side of the desk. So Nick Nolte jumps over the desk without a gun.
Yeah.
Bad guy has a gun, spazzes, and just like fires 4 bullets into the side of the desk instead of walking over and just shooting Nick Nolte and ending the movie.
How many scenes did it take for Nolte, who's not a small guy and not exactly in great shape, to get over that desk? Or how did they orchestrate?
It was a stunt double, right?
It 100%
sure.
was a double.
Because it's hilarious, because there's no way that Nick Nolte at that age and in that shape could have gotten over that desk.
It's for sure a stunt double. All right, Declan, your least favorite part about this movie.
Okay, so I love Eddie Murphy. He's one of my all-time favorites. And the only bone I had to pick with him, or maybe the creators of this movie, is I'm all for skinny dudes coming up stronger than they look. Eddie Murphy had no business winning any of that fight against Nolte. He would have hit the ground immediately, taking one of those licks. And I know he's like supposed to be a funny guy, but every time he got into an altercation, Eddie Murphy would get his ass kicked. He would drop to the floor. I don't think he would hold his own. I thought it was a little ridiculous that they made him out to be like a superhuman.
You mean walking into a Confederate bar with 50 angry and in some cases armed white men? And
Dude! Yeah. I'd like something to drink, preferably some vodka.
You best have a Black Russian.
Black Russian. You would have said Black Russian. That's a funny joke. I get it. I'm black. No, that's funny. No, I just rather have plain old vodka. That'd be nice.
So he walks into this. It's a Confederate country bar,
right? Yep.
And there's just like
country
angry
music.
white people all over the place, and he's just getting all these racial slurs.
But he's got
thrown at
Nolte's
him.
badge because Jack has now decided to give him the badge for a bet.
Yep. And so instead of dying or getting his ass kicked, he just brings all the music and everyone to a halt and clowns everybody. So
was that scene essentially done by the people that wrote the film who were keeping Murphy's popularity from SNL very much in mind? Was that scene done solely so he could do his Southern accent, which is hilarious?
Probably.
I think it was done so he could basically break out his Southern drawl.
It probably was.
Probably was.
So that's actually a good dovetail into my least favorite thing of this movie, which is just the number of uncomfortable racial slurs.
Yeah. I'd forgotten.
I didn't count the N-word.
Think about it at the time.
The N-word is uttered in this movie probably 10 times.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The
least.
opening scene. So you had the opening scene where you've got the two criminals. One's trying to get the one off the chain gang, right? And he pulls up in his truck, and I need my
Billy
truck
Bear.
batteries. But Billy Bear pulls up.
Billy Bear's a great name.
And they call him Tonto.
Yes.
And make a quip about firewater. So
Yep.
that's the quote was, I wonder what reservation he came from. Maybe you should have stolen a better truck, Tonto.
Yes.
It's like, oh, okay, we're doing that in this movie.
It got worse.
And then you had Nick Nolte calling Eddie Murphy watermelon.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was, it's like, oh, wow, that is amazing. And then they just went from Tonto and watermelon and said, let's just go the extra step and use the N-word. Nick Nolte calls Eddie Murphy the N-word like 3 times in this movie.
Yeah.
Not as like buddy, which you shouldn't do either, but like as a derogatory term. So, and then of course, Eddie gets called the N-word in the Confederate flag bar. So it's a little bit jarring, especially in the times that we live in right now with Black Lives Matter, to just hear that word thrown around. Like if they made a movie right now about the 60s or the 70s, I think they would even limit the use of the N-word.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
So that
Well,
was...
and he called him convict a bunch too, which was fine because it was derogatory. Yeah, I didn't understand the need to do that for the effect of Nolte's character was a little bit weird after a while.
Especially too when they like first meet in the car.
This your car, man?
Yeah.
Look like you bought it off one of the brothers.
All right, I did my part and I got you out, so now you do yours. Where we going?
We gotta go see a guy named Luther. Gans will be going to see him soon. We ain't got that much time though.
Is Luther part of the gang?
What gang you talking about, Jack?
Hey, I can read a police file, head. Quit calling me Jack.
It's just an expression, all right? I don't mean nothing by it.
I don't give a damn. It happens to be my name.
What the hell you complaining for? At least nobody calling you head.
I may call you worse than that.
And that's not even, I mean,
And he does.
that is, yeah, that's the least of the worst things he says.
Yeah, that I'm with you, and I know times have changed for sure, but it did get to be a little bit jarring. You're like, really?
Yeah. What else stood out to you guys in this movie? Good or bad? I've got a bunch of stuff from the internet to get into here.
The good is the pace of film was fantastic. And I like the fact that they start with the guys on the chain gang and they kill the cops who are guarding the chain gang immediately. And the interesting thing about the pace of film here is Murphy's character didn't appear, by my count, until 26 minutes into this film, and they still kept it pretty quick. So I will say, even if you don't like this film, it's not offensively long and it doesn't drag out. They basically have enough action / one-liners to keep it occupied.
Yeah.
So I actually thought the pace of film to get through this was very, very simple, which this would have been a film, if they had tried to drag this film out, and films have done this before, it would have gotten long. Like, it would have been like, are you serious?
Yeah.
I just felt the plot moved like kind of all over the place. So it starts with obviously that guy getting his girlfriend and the money taken, and then it just, they pause away. So then they go to Nick Nolte and Eddie Murphy and they set that up. But we don't see those two dudes again for like 45 more minutes into the movie. Like, it's basically setting up the relationship, obviously, between Nolte and Eddie Murphy. And I was just like, well, wait a minute, what about the real bad guy? So then it's a cat and mouse game for like the last 35 minutes of, you almost got me, you got me, you almost got me. And then Nolte get in trouble with the cop. I just thought the storyline was a little messy and hard to follow at times.
I did like that, though, because if they had tried to focus more on the bad guys, it would have gotten tired.
Yeah,
I like the fact that we just saw them and then we didn't see them.
We know they're evil.
And they're not
killers.
that important. The important thing, I think, really the heart of this film was how much could you get from the two main actors. I did, by the way, though, the police thing. Don't you love the screaming lieutenant? I'm going to have your ass if you don't have... And
don't you think you're being a little hard on him there?
And then, and then the fact that Jack's character, or that Jack goes behind the lieutenant to get Reggie out of jail, but doesn't tell him and says it's like some type of informant or some like FBI thing. But I love the screaming lieutenant. They're such a staple of the 70s into the 80s, I think.
Okay, so in
Including
retrospect,
Beverly Hills Cop, same thing.
Lethal Weapon too.
Yep.
Even
you
Die
guys
Hard.
are, your ass is grass.
Yeah. Okay, in retrospect, did Nick Nolte really need Eddie Murphy? Did the police department really need Eddie Murphy?
I was just confused.
To solve this case.
Well, let's backtrack just a little bit on that question. So 2 cops get blown away. Jack was just there because he showed up. So he wasn't like backup. 2 cops get shot by these guys that they think are credit card robbers, but they turn out to be escaped convicts. And Jack basically goes back in after these 2 are killed on his watch, basically. So he saw it. He goes back to work immediately, almost gets in a fight with a colleague, and then tells his lieutenant, I'm working this one alone. So the answer to your question, I think, goes much deeper than did he need Reggie? I think the question is, would you really tell a guy who just saw 2 cops or his friends get shot, go work this one alone?
He also...
I mean, it's not plausible. It's good.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Well, he also... so he goes to talk to Reggie in prison, and Reggie agrees to help out. But
Which
then,
is the great scene, by the way. The Roxanne scene.
He is Roxanne!
The Roxanne scene was an 80s staple. I can't tell you how many times my buddies and I would do Roxanne.
That was pretty funny.
Because of
Man,
that.
I'd love to see that.
It's pretty funny. But he goes and he goes to get some information from Reggie about these criminals, and Reggie goes, yeah, I'll definitely help you, but you gotta bring me with. Like, I gotta get out of prison to help you. To which, like, there's no checks and balances, nothing. He just, all right, cool, we'll just bring you out, and now you're a free man for an arbitrary 48-hour period, not 72. Like, why couldn't it have been 72?
Right.
If they needed an extra day to solve the case, like, why wouldn't it be 72?
Pace a movie.
I don't know.
We
So
need to keep it short.
the whole thing was just a little bit. It's like, all right, well, we definitely want to do a buddy cop thing with Eddie Murphy and some like grizzled white veteran police officer. Like, what's our mechanism? So here's some background information from the internet about the original cast as it was written in the 70s, and then why Nick Nolte almost didn't do the movie with Eddie Murphy. So casting notes. In the late 70s, so this script was kind of like variations of this script were kind of floating around Hollywood in the 70s. And in the late 70s, the script for the film moved from Columbia to Paramount, who wanted to do a draft of the movie for Clint Eastwood. So we're like 1977, 78, 79, and Paramount said, we want to do this for Clint Eastwood.
Interesting. Okay.
So they hired someone to rewrite the script with Clint Eastwood as the criminal. He did so, quote,
as Murphy?
I
or
guess.
as one of the bad guys? It had to be Murphy.
I don't know.
It had to be Reggie.
Probably Murphy, yeah.
Okay.
But when I turned it in, I said I didn't think it would work, the writer said, adding, the best idea would be to make Richard Pryor the criminal and have someone like Eastwood play the cop. So they were going to have Clint Eastwood as Nick Nolte and
I would
Richard
love
Pryor
that.
as Eddie Murphy.
I could totally see that.
I would love that.
Now, back in 1978 or 79, no one seemed to think that this was a good idea. Eastwood actually ended up playing a criminal in Escape from Alcatraz instead, which is a great movie.
Yep.
I don't know if it qualifies as like action movie rewind, but it's a great movie, and it's somewhat based on a true story.
Sure.
And as a result, 48 Hours went into limbo for 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
So Richard Pryor wound up just becoming like too famous and big and whatnot. So on the Nolte Eddie Murphy front, this is from an interview or a podcast. Nick Nolte's still alive in his late 70s now.
It's remarkable.
That is insane.
Still cooking.
I mean, he looked dead then.
He did. He looked terrible.
Awful.
And he's only like 40 in this movie.
Yeah, I know he
It's
is.
awful.
Yeah, he was like 40.
God. So Nick Nolte almost didn't do the movie with Eddie Murphy.
Okay.
48 Hours director Walter Hill dispatched Nick Nolte to New York to meet with Saturday Night Live star Eddie Murphy, who had yet to act in a film. Quote, this is from Nick Nolte, a first-hand account. I flew to New York, and I got to 48th Street, and I knew a black saxophone player there. So the director has flown him to New York to go sit down with Eddie Murphy to figure out, like, can you guys do this movie together? So he goes to New York, and he knows a black saxophone player there. And I got up to his apartment, and in those days, there was a white powdery substance running around that was abused badly, and I sat in that apartment for 3 days doing cocaine.
Oh, my God.
And I said to him finally, hey, man, I got to get over to meet this guy at Saturday Night Live, he said. The black cat, he goes? Yeah. Oh, you can't use him. He's a bass freak. I'm guessing that means a cocaine freak, a bass freak.
Okay.
You can't go near him. And so Nick Nolte's like, oh, well, in that case, I'll just go back to California. I'll just go home. I'll take your word for it. So he just takes this like random black saxophone player's word for it that Eddie Murphy is he's a cocaine freak.
So
or
he
whatever.
was going to meet him, but now he's not going to meet him.
So he didn't meet him.
Okay.
And he gets home and he tells the director that Eddie Murphy was a bass freak. And the director said, Eddie Murphy? Did you not meet him? That's the last time I'm sending you out. Then he meets Eddie and finds out that the saxophone player was referring to a different cast member. He got the two mixed up. There might have been a different black cast member. So Eddie Murphy was like, 18 years old, young guy, didn't go anywhere near any substances apparently in the early days.
Okay.
And so anyways, Nick Nolte was supposed to go meet Eddie Murphy, didn't meet him, instead went on a 3-day cocaine bender and then just came back to California.
So he went on a cocaine bender, but didn't go meet Murphy because he was told that Murphy was a cocaine addict, which he wasn't.
That's my translation.
God, I love the 80s.
So that's my translation of base freak. And maybe if there's somebody with a little more background that listens to the show that could tell us what base freak means.
Can you Google it?
Yeah, it's an Urban Dictionary probably.
And see if it's see if we can find out what base freak means. I mean, I'm guessing you're right.
Base freak. Yeah. This is from some website.
If it's Urban Dictionary, I would say that would be the good one to reference.
Yep, to base cocaine. Base cocaine.
Got it.
Not crack cocaine.
Okay.
Base cocaine.
Well, this says a smoker of crack cocaine on the website. So it's drugs.
But it's drugs.
Doing drugs.
So,
drugs.
but that was incorrect.
The
but
irony.
Nolte was so high, he just left.
So he's high on cocaine and being told, no, you don't want to work with that guy. That guy's a cocaine freak while he's high on cocaine.
Okay.
Also, Nick Nolte is notorious for his movie preparation. For his role as the vagrant Jerry Baskin in 1986's Down and Out in Beverly Hills, Nick Nolte spent several days living as a homeless person on the streets of Los Angeles.
Yeah, I could see that.
He said he spent 6 days sleeping like on the streets of Los Angeles.
Could totally
as a
see
homeless
that.
person.
He looks like he could do that.
Yes.
For Blue Chips 1994, Nolte shadowed Bobby Knight, legendary college basketball coach, and wrote a 200-page novel from the novel is a 200-page novel from the perspective of the character Pete Bell. So he like put himself in the shoes of a coach. And
so
then
he
wrote
is
a
as
novel.
crazy as we think he is.
Yes.
Yeah. Nick Nolte, man. There's that famous picture of Nick Nolte too on the internet. I think it's after a DUI where his hair is all crazy.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
In which I really think he looks more like Gary Busey on drugs than Nick Nolte, but that's a whole other story.
I don't know why, but I got like a lot of Jeff Daniels vibes when I was watching them. I was like, it kind of looks like him. Like,
yeah, I agree
interesting.
With that.
Yeah, like I saw that and I was like, wait, is this Jeff Daniels? When I first saw him, like, oh no,
he's got Jeff Daniels vibes. He doesn't have the humor side of Jeff Daniels, but
like looks.
Actually, you know what? Daniels, to Phil's point, would have been a better casted person for that role.
Probably.
Like he would have been more lovable. The thing with Nolte is there's nothing about him that could be a buddy.
Actually,
like the whole thought of these two guys are going to be cop buddies doesn't work with a guy who's as unlovable as Nick Nolte. Jeff Daniels would have been good.
I see what they were going for here. I mean, Clint Eastwood was the first one that they had in mind to play one of these roles, and if I think Clint Eastwood is like what Nick Nolte would have aspired to be in that era, right?
Why would you even think about casting Eastwood as as Reggie? I mean, that would have been terrible.
Would have been a completely different
Pryor would have been unbelievable.
Yeah, that would have been funny. So before we get to definitive bad guy rankings and the overall score, any other things you guys want to point out from 48 Hours? Anything we missed?
Exhausted my notes. Declan, you got anything else?
I'm good. I'm good here on my end.
So definitive bad guy rankings here. So far, the top 5, Hans Gruber from Die Hard, Cyrus the Virus from Con Air, Brad Wesley from Roadhouse, Mr. Joshua from Lethal Weapon, Ivan Drago from Rocky IV. Yeah. At the bottom 5, we have Richie from Out for Justice. Richie!
Anybody seen Richie?
Bennett from Commando, General Hummel from The Rock, Sloan from Wanted, and the incompetent Russian military from Rambo 3 at the bottom. So the villains in this movie, Gans and Billy Bear. Really, right?
Yeah.
It's Gans and Billy Bear.
And Gans is the primary bad guy because I take it from the film that Billy Bear follows Gans' lead, right?
Yes. So to me, the categories as we've sort of landed here, 21 episodes into Action Movie Rewind, it's sort of a combination of how great was the character, how iconic was the character, and it's less about, like, at first we said, well, Bodie from Point Break was not really that bad of a guy, and so, but his character was great, so we wound up moving him up.
Yep.
So
I'm with you on that.
There's not really an icon. Like the iconic characters here are the buddy cops.
Yes.
And so it's not really even about the bad guys. So I don't think they can be. I think they almost have to be bottom 5 just by the nature of the bad guys.
Who's bottom 5 again? Give me the bottom 5.
The bottom 5. Richie Out for Justice.
Okay. Fat guy.
Bennett from Commando.
Another fat guy.
General Hummel from The Rock.
General Hummel.
Sloan from Wanted.
Yeah.
And the incompetent Russian military.
I would put Gans above the incompetent Russian military, and I'd stop right there.
That's fair.
Because he's not fat. I mean, that's got to be
He's more realistic.
a point, right?
Yeah. We're
Like,
not,
I'm
we're not
sorry.
trying to be we're not trying to be like fat shamers here.
Dude, I've gained weight. I'm myself.
I'm saying
but I wouldn't
what
be the
you're
bad
saying
guy
is
right
more
now.
like Bennett from Commando was not a realistic villain
He's
because why would he be? How would he stand up in a fight with Arnold Schwarzenegger?
He's way too doughy. So
Right.
I would say, because the one thing that I will give Gans and Billy Bear, but especially Gans, is he is crazy. Like, he's good at being crazy.
Yeah.
He's shooting arbitrarily. It's clear he's supposed to be coked up, right? So I would put him above.
Yeah, and
Whoever
honestly,
I said.
like it's not even really his fault. It's not that he played the character. I mean, I know I made fun of his acting, but it's more he fulfilled the role that he was supposed to. Which
I thought he was good. I thought he played a good crazy guy. And to the writer's credit, they knew he wasn't that important. The problem would have been if they had given him more,
Sure.
and then you'd be like, this guy really can't act. So
Declan, I know you haven't seen all of these with us because you jumped into Action Movie Rewind sort of halfway through, but your thoughts on us ranking Gans and Billy Bear near the bottom?
No, that's probably accurate. I mean, they just were really good at playing like mouse, in the cat and mouse game. They just were really good at getting away. And I mean, they liked hookers. Clearly, that was obviously a thing that they like to do.
That's another part of the movie we didn't talk about. So Eddie Murphy at one point is like ordering a hooker on the phone, right? Oh no, I'm sorry. Gans and Billy Bear.
Because
The first thing that they get to the big city,
They get hookers at every
they're
place they go.
They're just like
Everywhere they
they're
go.
ordering hookers like we would order Bite Squad.
But Gans likes to, as the one hooker said, Gans likes to shoot his gun more than actually perform the act.
Oh,
Right.
my God.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I think both of them were, they were able to get away, so like good for them, and they just wanted this money, but they weren't like diabolical in their plan by any means. So towards the bottom is definitely correct.
Yep. All right. So now we get to our 1 through 10 ranking system here, and the top movies that we've rated so far: Die Hard with a straight 10 across the board, John Wick 9.3, Commando 9.2, Fast and the Furious and the Expendables at an 8.8, Roadhouse, Hard to Kill both at 8.5, Rocky 4 at 8.2, Independence Day at an 8, and Point Break at an 8.
Yeah.
And the bottom three to this point
Yep.
are Rambo 3 with a 4, Wanted with a 3.8, and Bloodsport with a 3, which is really a shame because I gave it like an 8. But
Yeah, you did. It was awful.
yep. So we'll start with Judd Zolgad.
So if I hadn't watched this film again this week, I would have given it a higher grade. But after watching it
Doesn't hold
again,
up as well.
well, I got to be honest, and this is going to sound really, really wimpy of me or weird of me. The need for the N-word and the racist dialogue now, to me, really started to throw me after a while. And I was just like, what? You don't, in any era, you don't, like, it doesn't need that.
It's uncomfortable.
It got uncomfortable. There were more flaws than I recalled. Look, it fulfilled a lot of the requirements for the exercise that we're doing here, but I can't put it up with the greatest films that we ranked. I'm going to give it a 6.
Okay.
Dex?
I'm going to give it a 6.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Coming after, like, once I finished the movie, I was like, man, that kind of sucked. That's kind of was what I took away from it. I just wasn't really entertained, and I was really gonna poo-poo it. But sleeping on it for a night, reviewing it with you guys, I'll say it's a 5. Like, I was actually gonna have it lower, like a 2 or a 3, but I'll say it's a 5. Like, it does meet our requirements. But to me, like, it wasn't captivating, and I was kind of getting bored through it. So I would give it a 5. It was a 5 out of 10.
So I came in before you guys said anything, and I said a 6, and I'm gonna stay at a 6 after reviewing this. It's fine. I would probably not look to watch it front to back again if I was given the choice of like any other Eddie Murphy buddy cop movie throughout the 80s. And I think in its time, it was the gateway to a run of great buddy cop movies.
That's exactly.
And
that's the importance of it.
Yep, they tweaked the formula, and they came out with Beverly Hills Cop, Lethal Weapon, and all these great buddy cop movies. And so that brings the average to a 5.7, which puts it 5th from the bottom. It puts it just above Air Force One, which I feel like we didn't give Air Force One enough credit there, but 5.7.
Get off
and
my plane.
It's just behind The Rock, Con Air, and Out for Justice in the 6 range.
Okay, yeah, that's very
That's
fair.
probably fine. Yeah, it's in the middle.
I think
Right?
our rankings to date have been incredibly fair
Agree with that.
I agree.
and really spot on.
Yeah. And a reminder too, we've been taking suggestions. We all have a bank. We go around the room and we every week it's my turn this week to pick the next movie. But we appreciate when you guys send us suggestions at Phil Mackey on Twitter, at Jay Zolgad, and at Dex's tweets. And when you watch the movies ahead of time so you can keep up with these episodes, which have become, along with Write That Down, the most downloaded thing on the Mackey and Judd podcast feed. So we thank you. And it's funny because I had a couple movies on my list here. In fact, I was going to tee up Beverly Hills Cop before Judd picked 48 Hours. So we'll move that. We can do that later on this year at some point.
Sure.
But the one that I settled on before coming to the studio today, Declan actually foreshadowed it, I think, off the microphone.
Nice.
By saying, sweep the leg.
Oh.
Karate Kid is our movie for next week.
Karate
You're
Kid.
the best around.
Oh, I'm excited. I haven't seen this in years. I'm jacked.
Karate Kid, gentlemen.
Ralph Macchio, right?
I will say it violates the 2-hour rule. It's like 2 hours and 5 minutes.
That's okay.
But I think this movie, it's
As long as we keep it
quick
close.
pace.
As long as we keep it close
Yep.
to 2.
When's the last time you guys saw this movie straight through?
I'm not even kidding. Since maybe I was 10 years old, if not younger. Like it's been 17 years.
I
at
saw
least.
one of them in the theaters. It might have been Karate Kid 2, though, that I saw at Harmar years and years ago. I don't know that I saw this one in the theater. I've definitely seen it. It's probably been, oh boy, I wouldn't have watched it in the 90s. I don't. It's probably been 30 years.
Beautiful.
Awesome.
Yes.
This will be great.
Macchio.
Also, don't make the mistake. There is
Arnold from Happy Days.
Yeah, there's a
remake with Will Smith's kid. Don't get tricked.
Oh, no.
Do not
You've
get
got to
tricked.
watch the one with Ralph Macchio.
Wax on.
Yes.
Wax on,
Who was
wax off.
basically Scott Baio and Macchio went back and forth, right? As teen stars, teen idols.
There's also a spin-off series that they just created on
That's
YouTube TV like 2 years ago called Cobra Kai.
Yeah.
With
Yep.
Ralph Macchio and Johnny Lawrence.
And the
from-
old guy now.
Is he? What? The old guy?
The blonde guy. The
Oh,
guy
yeah.
who was the
he
bad guy,
Johnny
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, he don't
Put
look
him
so
in a
good.
body bag, Johnny. Yeah.
He don't look so good no more.
Well, we don't either. That's okay. COVID will do that to you.
Anybody seen Richie?
That's
We
a
got to
wrap.
get back. I got to get back to some Seagal boys.
Anything's